Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kyle Carroll with MyMMAnews.com and Carol's Corner MMA podcast. Tonight, I am joined by Juliana Fontoura, who is a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner as well as an up-and-coming MMA fighter. Juliana, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Jiu-Jitsu and just martial arts in general.
So I actually started jujitsu when I was 15. So my brother, he used to do wrestling
Okay.
in high school. Um, I was not allowed to do it because I was a girl. My mom wanted me to do other things. And then on his off season, he really liked wrestling, and the only thing closest to it that he could do was jiu-jitsu. So he found like a local jiu-jitsu gym in my town that was like taught by a blue belt. And he started going there. And then he came home one day and he was like, "Hey, let me show you something." So he put me in a rear naked choke in the middle of my kitchen. I tapped a million times, and all of a sudden I was just blacked out. And then once I got up, I was like, F you, that's never happening again. And I went and I found a jiu-jitsu school. Oh, sorry.
No, all good.
I found a jiu-jitsu school near my house. Let me put this on silent. Sorry. And game over from there. Once, I started, I never stopped. And actually, my brother stopped and he was training under me. I got my black belt and everything. Like years later, I opened up my own schools. And then he was training under me, which was really cool.
That's pretty sweet. So how now you're a black belt.
Yes.
What was that journey like getting your black belt?
Man, that journey was wild. So my first coach that I started training under was Abmar Barbosa, and then I got my blue belt from him, but he left, and so I had to find another school. And then I started training with Soneka in Marlborough, Mass, and then that's where I met my daughter's father, and we were together for 8 years. So we opened up our own school when I got my purple belt. So I found out I was pregnant the week I got my purple belt.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that was wild. So when I found out I was pregnant, we were like, well, either we open a school now or we're never going to open one. And so we opened one. It was very successful. I had it for 8 years before I moved down to Florida. And yeah, and so my journey, I won. I medaled at Worlds in 2018. I won Pan Pacific weight and open class in 2017. And then was it 2018 is when I got my black belt.
Okay. And what made you make that transition from where you live into Florida?
The weather.
The
I
weather?
always wanted to be here. Yeah, my entire life. My parents always wanted to move, and every time, winter came, they'd be like, "All right, we're moving," and then they never did. And I was like, "Well, maybe," you know, when pandemic hit, I was like, "Man, what makes me happy?" And the weather definitely wasn't it. And being there, and all the COVID craziness and the masks, mandates. I was just so over it. So I was like, you know what, like there's so many female black belts in Florida, and that's really what made me like do it, because I was getting to a level where I was the only black belt in Massachusetts for a very long time. Now there's one other one, but I was the only black belt there for such a long time, and there was no competition for me. There was nothing ever there for me. And so I was like, I have to move. I have to be somewhere where there is competition for me, where I can grow. And it's like that whole thing when you put a fish in a small tank, it only grows the
Mhm.
size of that tank. The bigger the tank, the bigger the fish. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
it's kind of the same thing. So I came down here to broaden my learning and things like that.
Awesome. And now you're looking to make that transition to MMA. Are you trying to go amateur first and then professional, or go right to pro?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do amateur first, just so I can. It's definitely very different when you're getting punched in the face.
Sure.
I don't think people that are watching UFC and all these things. I don't think they realize how technical it is and how dangerous it is. I think everybody should get punched in the face at least once or kicked in the face. Like I actually almost got knocked out this past weekend by accident during our sparring session. I was like, "Oh shit, like this is like
You guys were going hard, huh?
yeah, we were cuz I started back in was it February is when I started actually like committing to stand up. And then because my jujitsu is already very good, I was like, wait, I need to close. My coach was like, you need to close the gap between how good your jujitsu is to your stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right. Once he said that, I was like, I need to be training every day, twice a day. So that's exactly what I did, and that's how I started with my jujitsu too. When I started, I really loved it, and so I was training every single day, twice a day. My first competition, I went in there and I won my first jiu-jitsu competition. So that's kind of what kept me going. And really, like when they say you got bit by the bug, that's what happened to me for my first competition. So when I started doing stand-up and really committing to it, same thing. I was like, oh shoot, this is cool, and then I get to combine the two. So when I get to combine the two, I definitely feel more comfortable when I'm doing stand-up only right now. I'm like, because like I said, getting punched in the face and getting kicked, it's not anything like I don't know, man. You can do jiu-jitsu forever and be all right, but like when you're getting kicked and you're getting punched, it gets real, real quick. So
Absolutely. Like Tyson says, once you get punched in the face, game plan goes out the window.
game plan goes out the window. Yep.
Absolutely. So how are you guys going about going to get a fight? Because I'm sure as an amateur, it's gonna be tough for you. You're a black belt. There's not many amateur black belts, especially female black belts,
Yeah.
competing. So how are you guys going about that?
I'm leaving it all up to my coaches, really. I think in any sport, you have to be able to be coachable. And if you
Hmm.
can't be coachable, then you're not going to go very far. And so, really, I'm just, whatever they're telling me to do, whatever they're, recommending I do, I just put my head down and I work hard. If that's my job is to put my head down and work, and whatever my coaches are telling me to do, they're experienced, Charles McCarthy over at American Combat Gym, he kind of just, when I came in, he like hugged me and was like, all right, let's go, let's put this girl to work. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity that he gave me, because I'm in there and I'm putting in the work, obviously, but he really, when I came down here, a lot of things happened with my training, which is kind of why I left jujitsu and then I started MMA. I was just so frustrated with the whole jiu-jitsu community at one point that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore for the first time ever. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 13 years. So for
Hmm.
me to get to a point where I was like fed up with it, and then he kind of gave me a second wind with this whole MMA thing, and I'm very thankful for it, because now I have something to like look forward to and get back to competing, which I absolutely love. I kind of put that out the window a little bit to focus on my daughter when she was born, so now I get to really focus on myself.
Absolutely. What was it about jiu-jitsu community that was frustrating you? Was it just like lack of competition or other factors?
Um, Definitely lack of competition where I was, which is like I said, why I moved, and then I feel like everybody's just out to get each other, and there's just so many little like things going on, all the
Like
time.
little
Like one
drama
person,
stories?
too much drama. Like, yeah, once you get to a higher level and you see all of this stuff, it's kind of, I've always had, when I had my schools, I always had an open door policy, which I think is extremely important as as a professor when I'm teaching. I need to be confident in my work and what I'm teaching you,
Hmm.
and I can't tell you where you should and shouldn't go outside of my school. You're paying me to teach you jujitsu. You're not paying me to tell you whose gym you can and can't go. Like, who am I? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear about that a lot, where a lot of people go to a gym, and I guess the gym owners feel they're supposed to be loyal to that gym.
That's complete BS. You know what that is to me? That's you not being confident in your work. I know that, I give my students wings, and if they want to go somewhere and they want to go train somewhere else, I'm confident enough to know that they're going to come back if I'm doing a good
Mhm.
job. And if they don't want to come back, I need to look at my work again, because that means I'm not doing a good job. So
Absolutely.
I think that loyalty thing is it's complete BS, is what it is. Like, oh, you should be loyal to me in my gym. No, go find other places. And if you see somewhere that's better and you think it's going to get you to a higher level, I'm going to pat you on the back and I'm going to say, hey, go do that. If you think you can't grow in my fish tank, go grow in somebody else's fish tank. And that's okay. I'm not going to be mad. You know, that just means that I need to fix whatever it is. If somebody, if people are leaving my school, that has something to do with me. It doesn't, I think
Do you
people
feel,
need to start looking within and not.
do you feel like a lot of people are opening gyms for the wrong reason? Just, hey, I practiced a little bit. I know some jujitsu. Let me open a gym and make some money. Do
Oh,
you feel like a lot of
absolutely, I've
people it's
seen
a money
so
maker?
many McDojos.
Because the jujitsu gyms have exploded throughout the country, let alone around here in New York. They've just
Yeah,
used to be one or two on Long Island. Now there's about 50.
yeah, and you can buy belts online too, which is wild. um,
Just show up with a black.
that alone is just like crazy to me. But yeah, I think there are, because I did it for 8 years. I know that it's when you open, you don't focus on yourself anymore. And I don't think people realize that. When you open a school, it's now you and your students, mostly your students. And what I mean by that is, like, if I go to a tournament and I'm competing, I can no longer shut myself off and put my headphones on and go do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be yelling and screaming and coaching and doing all of these things with my students. It's not just me anymore, because when you're just a competitor, you get to be selfish and you get to just think about yourself. And when you open a school, you can't be selfish anymore. So it's a lot of people asked me if, because I had a gym for 8 years, they asked me if I was going to open when I came down here. And initially that was the plan. Um, but I know that I'm capable of so much more in my career personally, that I took a step back from that. And, I want to focus more on myself. And eventually, do I want to open a school? Absolutely. I miss teaching. It's my absolute favorite thing to do. But I want to open to where I can teach only and I don't have to deal with the office work. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah, like the day-to-day work, business side of things.
The business side and bringing people in and
Mm-hmm.
doing those things. I don't want to have to worry about that. So right now I am still teaching jiu-jitsu at A&M over here in Fort Lauderdale, Hard Knocks. And then I train my jiu-jitsu at American Combat, and all of my training is at American Combat as well.
Cool. And you're not just like a gym owner too. You're also own a clothing line as well, right?
I do, yeah. Kaukahi, as you guys can see, it's run out of my house for now. Hopefully, I'll be opening a big warehouse in a few years. Got our sports bras, our t-shirts, men's gear, gis, no gi gear as well. Um, I wanted really nice things for men, because I see all of this stuff. I'm like, oh my god, like these guys could be wearing like nicer things. And females, we don't have. What happened was, I was in the locker room one day after training with the girls, and we were all comparing our no-gi shorts
Okay.
and how long they were, and how each and every single one of us was wearing men's no-gi shorts rolled up. And I was like, that day, I was like just listening to the conversation in the room, and I looked down at my shorts. And I'm like, man, like I look like a dude right now. Like jujitsu, like it's already hard enough for us to be on the mat and feel feminine, because our hair's in a bun, our nails usually look messed up because we're on the mat, especially if you're an athlete all day. Like my feet look gross. And then on top of that, you're trying to be as girly as possible, and you're wearing these baggy clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And all the girls were just, they were talking about how they were sick and fed up, and how we needed a clothing line that did these things for women. And I was like, you know what? I see a thing here. So then I started to like design it, and then I would send, I had a guy that I used to work with for my gis and stuff, and I would send him, what I wanted, and then he would send a sample back, and then I would like put it on and adjust it, take an inch off here, put an inch on here, and send it back. And man, that took a whole year of adjusting my stuff. Yeah. People thought I just, popped my logo on some shorts and called it a day. No, it took a whole year of like back and forth and things like that. So I put in a lot of work.
How'd you figure out what kind of material you want for your clothing line? Was this something you felt already, or something you had in mind, and you were like, you know what, something to stop you from sweating so much, stuff like that? Kind of how Under Armour like wicks away the sweat.
Yeah. So with my gear, I like I said, I sent many samples back and forth and things like that. And there were, I would send samples of clothes that I liked, and then I would tweak those, in those materials. And there's also the COVID thing, which is like the supply shortage. So there were certain materials that weren't available or were available, but they were more expensive or whatever. But I didn't want to, compromise on the quality or anything. So like, for example, my t-shirts are not cotton t-shirts. They're nylon and spandex. So they're, like really nice. I don't know if you ever wore like Lululemon. Like that's the kind of material that I have for my things. They're not, just
nice.
a regular cotton t-shirt that you're going to put on and it's going to shrink in the dryer and then you're never going to wear it again. It's going to turn into a nice crop top when you do one of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you balance all this? You got your work in, you got your company, you got training, everything going on. How do you balance all of it?
And my daughter.
And your daughter, I apologize.
Yeah. So I have my daughter 50% of the time. So I have her every other day and every other weekend. And so while she's at school, I am training, and then I pick her up. And then Tuesday, Thursdays, I go teach. And then while I'm teaching, I drop her off with her dad for her to train Jujitsu as well. And then after that, I have
she's
more
following
training
her mother's footsteps.
What was that?
She's following in her mother's footsteps, becoming a badass on the mat.
Yeah. So her dad, he's actually a black belt as well. So she's been on the mat since she was a week old.
Wow.
Yeah. So she loves jiu-jitsu, and she's, she always says that she wants to have her own school and she wants to do all these things and compete. And so I think, she's definitely following in those footsteps. She actually didn't want to train until 2 years ago, and I didn't want to push her either because my mom, when I was growing up, she was a piano teacher, and she forced us to train piano. And until this day, I have this thing with pianos because I was made to do it, and I never wanted to do that with her. So, when I was like, you know what, when you're ready, the gi is here, whenever you want it, you let me know. And so one day she's like, Mommy, I want to train. So we were both like, all right, are you sure? You can't, we're not going to treat you any different or special because you're on our mats and you're our kid. Like if you're going to train, you're going to be serious about it. So, she definitely got the message, and she takes it very seriously. And there are days, sometimes because my schedule is so hectic that if I can't take her, she's like, Mommy, I can't miss training, So like she calls me out, which is funny.
Nice. She sounds like she's dedicated to it.
She is. She's very dedicated, and she's very good.
Awesome. When you're coaching, when you owned your gym and you were teaching, I'm sure you still teach. How much of that coaching helped you improve your game? Because I coach and I understand how much detail there is to understanding things.
Immensely. When I started teaching to now, you don't actually realize how much you don't know until you start teaching, because you have to not only think about how you would react to it, you have to think about how all the students in the room would react to it, and then explain it in a way where it's going to target every single one of those brains in the room, which is so important. I don't think people realize there are good athletes, there are good coaches, but the two together is very rare where you have a good athlete
True.
/ coach. They're two completely different things. I hear it all the time. They're like, oh, but I'm coached by so and so who has 50 million awards. I'm like, but are they a good coach?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
they're two different things. So my game definitely changed because of those things. And there are certain things that other students will bring up to you and be like, oh, but like if this happens or that happens or whatever, and you have to start, the wheel starts turning in your own brain, because sometimes you only think of the reaction that you would do, not the reaction of the other people. So it is definitely a game changer, and I highly recommend, even if you're gonna like help the kids class, you're gonna see so many things in that kids class. And there's some things that like the kids do and you're like, oh my God, how do they do that? You know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah.
I'm an adult and my body is supposed to fully function in every single way possible. And these kids are like pulling off these things, their coordination. I'm like, how are they more coordinated than I am, sometimes. So it is good to coach, and I think everybody should try to do it at least
Absolutely.
a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you do for yourself when you're not training and trying to I guess recharge the batteries, relax, enjoy yourself? What do you do in your free time?
Man, right now, when I'm not training, I'm thinking about training. Just because the whole stand-up thing to me is so new
Okay.
that it's always winding. But, I like to all my friends now that I hang out with that, I met here. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram, but Miranda Barber, she's a bare knuckle fighter, and then we have Astrid as well. That she's one of my good friends, and she also fights MMA. So we're always together, and we're always either training or relaxing together. And so we usually go to the beach or whatever, or hang out at my pool. But we're always
Always talking
bouncing, or
about
if we're not
it.
doing it physically, we're talking about it, like we don't really, I don't know. It's the first time I've ever had like some friends that do it. All of my friends prior to meeting them didn't do jiu-jitsu. None of my friends.
Okay.
Um which was nice because it's a breath of fresh air than hanging out, because I did it all day, and then
It's a new
um
perspective of things.
yeah, because I get to like shut off my brain for a little bit and not, but that was me with 13 years of jujitsu. Right now, my brain is like, oh, I'm learning all these new things. So like now I'm constantly talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you constantly talking about something that you're learning. Because like before with jiu-jitsu, it got to a point where I was just teaching and just, it gets, you obviously, like with jiu-jitsu, you're still always constantly learning, but it's not
Challenging at times. Like you're looking for the next challenge and
yeah. So with this, I'm like, oh, this is challenging now, like
Mhm.
I'm getting punched in the face. I gotta make sure I'm, so it's so different now. And I really like it, and I'm really excited for the things. There are definitely some good days on the mats right now, and there are some bad days.
Okay.
Like I said, this past weekend, I almost got knocked out on Saturday, but and then I came back today, and because I'm training so much and so often, some people that I started with, like I start to see that I'm like slowly like catching up, and I'm like, wow, you don't think about it because you're doing it daily, but when you start seeing people that don't come in as often, and you're like starting to, because of how often you're training, it's definitely
Mhm.
very cool to see. Because with jujitsu, it doesn't matter who comes in. It's not intimidating. It's not whatever. Because I already know what I'm doing, and if somebody comes in and they're huge, I'm like, all right, I'm still gonna toss you anyway. But with stand up, that's not how it goes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Who are some of the fighters like in the professional level, or not even in the professional, that you look up to and you want to mold your, I guess, your style after them? I'm sure you definitely have your own style, but you kind of see them, you're like, you know what, I like the way they move inside the cage.
yeah. Um, I mean, unfortunately, this weekend it wasn't the best, but Rose is definitely one of the people that I look up to. Amanda Nunes by far. Kayla Harrison is, I don't have a lot of people that I put on like a pedestal because I think everybody's like a human being and they're just people that do great things. I don't think of people as like these huge celebrities. Oh my god, like fan or
Absolutely.
whatever. But Kayla, she's on a different level to me just because of all of her accomplishments. She's an Olympian and whatever she sets out to do, she does it and she makes sure that she does it well and she makes sure everybody knows that she does it well. But she doesn't have to say it. And that is the coolest to me. I like humble people that let their work speak for themselves. And she's one of those people. Same thing with Rose. She puts her head down, she does the work. And I think that's, people need role models like that. You have like a McGregor that just,
Talks about
yaps away, which is cool because, he does
makes a ton
all
of
the,
money doing it.
all the marketing with it, which is, his
Yeah.
thing. But, like a Khabib or, those people that are just humble and they let their work speak for themselves is a lot more beautiful, is a nice way to put it.
What'd you think of seeing like Kayla Harrison getting challenged, getting a decision victory?
That
Something different from finishing everyone in the first second round.
um that girl, the one she want to get, she works really hard. She's from Stanford. I actually train with the Stanford guys, and I
Okay.
know how great they are. They're all of their people that are teaching for them and all of their athletes, they're incredible athletes. And so was I surprised? No, because I train with those guys and I see the work that they're putting in and stuff like that. And so I haven't trained with her because I don't train at the main Stanford facility, but where I teach jujitsu, which is A&M at Hard Knocks, they have like a affiliate of Stanford inside there. And man, those guys are good, And so I wasn't surprised when she went in there and she gave her a challenge. And yeah, but Kayla is just, she's
Still
just
found a way to get it done.
yeah, she's just another level, man. She I think
Absolutely.
I think mentally she's just on another level compared to anybody. And I think if you have the mental switch, which is what you need to have when you're
Hmm.
competing, and just being able to shut everything off and just focus on the task at hand, which is beating somebody's ass. She's got it, man. Her work speaks for itself. She's a freaking Olympian. Like who gets to that level?
Absolutely. No.
Nobody,
Yeah,
it's very
she's
far
incredible.
few between.
Now, when you see like a fight like Saturday night with Rose and Carla, a lot of people were upset about how little effort it looked like they really both fighters put into that. Um, w- but the corner of Rose looked like they were conflicting. Like Pat Barry wanted to keep doing what she was doing. Her other coach sounded like he wanted more out of her. What are your thoughts on something like that? Now, Pat Barry, as we all know, is her husband or future. Like they're married,
Yeah.
right? So thoughts on
Um, I think Juliana, prior to getting punched in the face, would have talked a lot and be like, wow, that was so boring. And that was so unentertaining and this and that. But when you do this and
that?
you know what getting punched in the face is,
Yeah, absolutely.
even what they were doing was extremely technical.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody realizes that because they want to see the action, they want to see, people getting punched. But if you are watching, and you do this, you're looking at the footwork, you're looking at, the distance and that pocket that they're creating for each other. You're not just looking at this quote unquote boring fight. You're looking at the whole picture
Mm-hmm.
and what it actually takes to be in there, because it's easy to sit out in the crowd and say all this stuff, but you have no idea how much work was put in beforehand. You have no idea what their weight cut was inside, closed doors. You have no idea how many injuries either one had people don't think about these things when they're sitting in the stand. All they're thinking about is the show or the task at hand. And so now that I'm in it, it wasn't so boring as if it was Juliana, a few months ago that had never gotten punched in the face, is what I think people need to realize.
Do you
Which is
think
why,
Rose? Do you think Rose was so worried about Carla's takedown that like she
yeah,
really wasn't working the jab either? Do you think that was part of like her a reason for lack of strikes and volume?
I think she just didn't want to lose. I think she was just so focused on the fact that she didn't want to get hit, and she wasn't closing off in that pocket. She couldn't find, she wasn't going in enough to find it correctly. And so I think she was just being, there's like extra cautious and then there's like extremely cautious. She
Yeah,
was being extremely cautious because, it sucks to lose and she didn't want to lose to her, and I get that. I've fought
absolutely.
girls in jujitsu that, I was like, man, when I go in there, I'm going to be extremely cautious because I've already lost to her. And so I get that aspect of it.
Especially when a win like that means so much. Like you're saying, you train for everything. Now winning this dictates really the rest of your career, whether or not you're the champion or not, and how much money you're getting and paying the bills and everything else that goes into it. So I agree with you.
You put blood, sweat, tears on the mat, man. You cry, you laugh,
Mhm.
and people don't see that. People only get to see the show. People don't get to see the tears and the laughter and the bad and good days and the dieting and the sacrifices that you have to make. You go out with your friends and everybody's drinking and everybody is eating crappy food, and you have to say no to all these things, but what do you get at the end? you
Absolutely.
know that's when you step in the cage, that or you step on a mat to compete. Those are the things that run through your head, and those aren't the things that are running through the crowd's head. They don't care. They're out there having a beer while you're doing all this, and they're still pointing a finger at you,
Yelling ridiculous things.
yelling ridiculous things. Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years as an amateur or as an MMA competitor?
um Definitely going to be in the UFC. I will be in the UFC. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to do all this work, and I'm gonna get in there, and I'm gonna be one of the greats. You can mark these words, and you can save this podcast. You can be like,
Will
man, what,
do.
that girl on TV, I know her. When I put my mind to something, everybody who knows me knows that I do everything that I ever said I was gonna do. Ever since I started jiu-jitsu, I said one day I'm gonna open a gym. Now one day I'm gonna be a black belt. One day, I'm gonna have a clothing line, and all of these things, I have done. And I've also, I said I was going to move. I move. As long as you are doing the work, man, I'm doing the work. I am tired but I'm hungry, and my number one motivation is my daughter, man. I want her to see mom and be like, man, my mom is a badass. My mom set out to do everything she said she was going to do, and she made it happen. And that is the most important thing to me, is for me to be the best role model for my daughter that I can be. Mommy's a black belt. Mommy's open to school successfully. A lot of people, when I did that, when I opened my own school, they're like, oh, but you're a female. Men aren't going to want to train with you. I had more men in my gym than I had females when I opened my school.
Nice.
And that was surprising to people. So, will I do it again? Absolutely, I'll do it again. And I want other women to see what I'm doing and know that they're also capable, because a lot of people will listen to people be like, oh, you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. You're a female. You're not good enough. You're not this and that. But you got to have tough skin. You just got to shut out the noise and
Hmm.
keep it in the direction that you think you're going to do it. And if you know you can do it, why the hell not? Why are you going to let somebody that doesn't do what you do tell you that you can't do it?
Hey, I believe in it. I don't know if you are you watching the Ultimate Fighter right now.
I'm not.
Okay.
I very rarely turn on my TV if I'm being
Okay.
very honest. I train so much that when I get home, I just want to like shut off. So the only time that I'm turning on and watching anything really is if one of my teammates is fighting, you know, a local event or something like that, or if the UFC fights are on, and you know, I go to my friend's house and they all watch it too. So that's the only time that I watch anything.
Well, I believe that you're going to be in the UFC because, Caitlin Neal, Katniss Neal, who's fighting tomorrow night in the second episode. I interviewed her when she first started and got into MMA, and her background was cheerleading. And she's
I
like,
was a cheerleader too.
okay, there you go. Yeah.
Don't
And
tell anybody.
and she, and she's like, I'm gonna get there to where I want, be in the UFC, and she's had some up and downs, surgeries and stuff, but here she is about to fight in the second episode of Tough, and I know going like right when it started, she had a lot of things going on, like her father passed away, and but yeah, she's on the show and all. It's cool to see where she started and where she is now and whatnot. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I think everybody has a different reason to why they get into the sport, and a different reason as well what makes them stay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because a lot of people that they'll do it for a while and then they'll leave, and then some people come back, some people don't. But the people that stick with it and the people that you know do it for a long time, it's you got to really love the sport, and you got to really love what you do, and you got to love the grind, you know, the
Absolutely.
discipline. You have to love that too. You have to learn to love that. You know, discipline is a hard thing. You know, people are always like, "Oh, how do you stay motivated?" You're not motivated every day. You think I wake up every day and go, "Oh, I want to go train and I want to freaking train for 3 hours a day"? No, you know, I don't. But I put in my head, it's a privilege for me to be able to do those things. There was one of my strength conditioning coaches. He got cancer at one point. Mike Perry over at Skill of Strength, and he made one post. He's an extremely healthy guy. You know, works out every day, has his own strength conditioning gym. He's actually he trains Rob Font and Calvin Cater
Okay.
over in Chelmsford, Mass. Yeah. And when he got cancer, he made a post and he goes, you know, there's nothing that, you know, along the lines of there's nothing more I would love to do right now than to work out. And I'm not capable of doing those things. So just know that if you're able to work out, it's a privilege and something in my brain just, you know, every day I wake up and I'm so much more thankful that I'm able to do those things. It's a privilege for me to be able to get up and work out and train and put in the hard work, because some people want to do it and they can't, and I get to do that every day. I'm healthy enough and I keep myself healthy enough, and knock on wood, I haven't gotten anything that you know impedes me of doing those things, so hopefully it stays that way.
What's something about you that nobody knows but you'd like to share with everyone? I know you got a pretty big following
Oh
on
man,
Instagram,
nobody
but
knows.
you got to have something in there that nobody knows. I've had a boxer, she's afraid of sponges or has a phobia of sponges, a black belt who can't ride a bike, people who can't swim, or there's a lot of like a cook, there's random things. What's something about you that nobody knows and
Oh
you
my
want to share?
god, something that nobody knows. That's hard. I'm a pretty open book when it comes to life, if I'm being really honest.
Okay.
Something nobody knows. I don't know. I'm such an open
Okay.
book. I don't really hide anything. I'm real, man. Everything that I post, everything that you see,
Hmm.
like, is just straight up Juliana. I don't hide anything from anybody. If you ask me something and it is, it is. And if it's not, I'm gonna tell you that it's not. And if you disagree with it, that's okay too. You know, you don't have to
Cool.
agree with me. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm just so open. I don't really hide anything. I don't know.
Awesome.
That's a
Awesome.
great question. I'm gonna have to think about that now. Like,
All
what
right.
is
Yeah.
one thing that nobody knows about me?
Yeah. If you find out, definitely
I'll let you
let
know.
us know. Yeah.
That's gonna be spinning my wheel up here for a little bit.
Absolutely. Um, so what inspires you? I know you were talking about your coach Perry, like his comments. But what else is the motivating factor for you to continue to conquer your dreams and your goals? What is that?
My daughter. My daughter, for her to be able to look up to me and say, I want to be like mommy. I want to be that role model for her, like my dad is for me. My dad's my superhero. Everybody that knows me knows that. My dad, he's a workhorse. He gets up every day and he goes to work and he puts his head down, and I think that's where I get it from. And my dad is good with his hands, and everything that he puts his hands on, he can take apart and put back together, and it doesn't matter what it is, from
Awesome.
cars to whatever. My dad, he built an airplane from zero. He built a BD-5 and flew it, which is
Wow.
wild. Yeah.
That's pretty
He
sweet.
actually was in the newspaper. Actually, there you go. That's something nobody knows about me. My
Yeah,
dad
that's badass.
built a BD-5. Yeah, and then he not only did that, but he landed it on a frozen lake.
What?
Yeah, I
Where did
know,
he fly
it's
to? To
crazy.
Alaska?
No, it was actually back home in Boston. There's two
Okay.
little lakes that freeze every year, and they got thick enough to where one day he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna land on this freaking lake," and my mom was like, "I don't think you should, but all right, here we go." So yeah,
That's wild.
so my grandfather was a pilot, my dad's a pilot, and my brother is a pilot, but I don't like to fly.
No, you don't like to fly.
I'm not a big fan. I'll fly a big airplane, but every time I flew the little ones with my dad, he used to bring out a trash bag for me so I could.
Oh, yeah. Again, you didn't
Yeah,
stick
I'm
your head
not a
out the
big
window
flyer.
and give something for the people down below.
Yep, just a little package dropping.
Oh man, that'd be horrible. That's not bird poop.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. That's pretty cool though that you built a plane and flew it.
Yeah, I actually have pictures of me, like, in it when I was younger, which is really cool when it's, like, half built and
Okay,
all this stuff, yeah.
nice, nice. What have you learned about yourself through MMA, through jujitsu, just through martial arts? What have you learned about yourself the most?
Oh, man. So, when I started training, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I was always, I think, very confident, but I didn't know how unconfident I was, I guess you
Okay.
could say. Um, you walk around so different when you actually know what you're doing. If somebody were to come up to me, I'm not intimidated. And when I started, doing jujitsu in high school, it changed my demeanor completely because guys couldn't mess with me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did, I'd be like, hey, listen,
Choke
if
their
you
ass.
don't, I will, and so it gives you a different level of respect, as well, because this is known. So high school is a breeze. I think that was the main thing, and then once you grow up, um, I'm always the friend that people feel like, oh, we got to bring her out, because if something happens, we'll be all right. Um, I don't know, which is kind of cool. And then they see, it's when somebody thinks of like somebody that does jujitsu, it's like this like tomboy or this somebody that doesn't look feminine is
Mhm.
somebody that does these sports. And that's not the case. Like you can be, feminine and a badass.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing that more now with Paige and with Rhonda and with Kayla. You can be feminine and be pretty and still be a badass. I think
Hmm.
before it was just such a stigma, like, oh, you're a girl, like you can't be doing these things, like this is so manly, blah 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 blah.
Like you not
Do
being
both.
wrestling.
Yeah. You know, like when I was growing up, I had to literally sneak off to jiu-jitsu. I signed my own I signed my own waiver. Sorry, Leo. Um, I signed it and I took it to the gym and I would tell my mom I was going to my friend's house and I would go to jiu-jitsu. And then when my mom found out, like, I don't know, 3 months later, I got in a lot of trouble because I was doing a man's sport. So I think it's important for people to know that, it's not a guy only sport. And thankfully now, when I started, there weren't any females. Right now, not only do we have the biggest amount of females, but like I haven't seen any gyms that have the amount of females that do MMA. We have the biggest at American Combat. And I'm proud to be part of that too, because
Mm-hmm.
the more, with Talita, she's the one that started all that. And, she's just attracting so many women in that place. And it's so badass to see. When I went in there, it was me, Talita, and like two other girls, and now it's just a huge, massive like amount of females that we have right now. We have our own little crew going. We all train together and we all hang out together, and you know, one helps the other because everybody has different skills. So like, Miranda, she's an amazing boxer, and then Astrid's been doing stand up for 10 years, and I have jujitsu for 13 years, and Talita's 6-time, you know, jiu-jitsu world champion. And so everybody brings a little bit of spice, as Miranda says, salt, salt, pepper. So it's been nice training with the girls. It's been good because I've never had that before.
It's changed drastically. At one point, Dana White was like, there will be no women's UFC. Now, women's UFC
Huge.
exploded. And like he even goes, he goes, I'll never say that again about anything.
Some of the girls are now main events.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like so entertaining that it's main event.
Yep.
So I think it's definitely going to grow more. I'm sure eventually it's going to be like its own thing.
Do you think it's just time where, same with men's MMA, where it took a while for real athletes to kind of get in there? I feel like when it first started, it was like you drink beer, you're just a bar brawler, and then you get in there and just go to town. Even though there were people in there with skills, but majority of the fighters, they're just drinking and fighting. Now these guys
not doing that anymore.
No, these guys are all professional athletes. Same with the women. Do you think that's kind of that? It's kind of catching up now, finally, where a lot of the women who got in, they weren't like the top tier athletes, but now the top tier athletes are climbing in, like Kayla Harrison and others.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm just saying, do you think it's catching up quicker? Like
100%. I think right now it's like starting to boom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in I don't know, like 2-3 years, it's gonna be like massive because the amount that it grew in these past couple of years since Ronda was on is wild.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch. Before it was like a few women's divisions. Now there's like a bunch of women's divisions, and eventually, it's just gonna keep going. I think, like, just from seeing what we have at American Combat right now is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that before. That amount of women that do MMA. I've seen a few gyms that have a lot of women, but that do MMA alone is wild to me. The other day I was counting, it was like we had like 12, 13 women on the mat. We outnumbered the men one of the days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in one of the classes. It was so cool. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome, So I think it is slowly growing and we're seeing it. And the more women we can get on the mat, the better,
Absolutely.
We need women to be doing these things and knowing their potential. Because I think a lot of women don't know what they don't know. And a lot of women, guys, need to stop telling their significant others that they can't be doing this because they're going to be grappling with men. It's so different. The amount of respect on a mat, okay, is so different than what they have. In their mind, they're thinking like, oh, it's going to be like a sexual thing. And it's
Mhm.
not. It's so respectful. Like, guys are scared to do anything with women sometimes. I'm like, man, just train with me like anybody else. You know, I guess to a point sometimes where it's a little frustrating, actually, because of how respectful they are, which is, it's better to be more cautious, less cautious. But, you know,
Absolutely.
um, I think a lot of men need to just let their wives do their thing. You know what I mean? I've heard a lot like, oh, do you have women's only classes? Because, my husband wouldn't like it. I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, whatever. We do. But you got to be training with everybody. Like, you're
Mm.
going to be training with, so there's that too.
What's some advice you would give to a young woman who's getting into it for the first time?
What is good advice? I have so many. So many. Um, Shut out the noise.
Okay.
Shut out the noise. You're going to hear a lot of stuff. You're going to hear a lot of people say that you're a female, that you won't make it far, that this isn't something you should be doing. That, man, I've heard so many things. Those are the things, most of the time, those are the things that I heard, that I wasn't going to get anywhere with it. But here I am. I love proving people wrong. It's my thing.
Awesome. Sponsors, you want to give anyone a shout out? Recognize anyone?
Yeah, my own sponsor, Kakahi, guys. Make sure you go on kakahicollection.com. Primary Jane, I've been working with them for like 2 years. They're a CBD company. They're amazing and their products taste fire. And they're really good for you. Clean ingredients. They're all lab tested and things like that. American Combat Gym. Charles McCarthy, you are the man. Thank you for everything you do for us. I want to thank Drew over at A&M Jiu-Jitsu for believing in my work and letting me instruct. And, that's the other thing too. A lot of places, they're scared to hire female jiu-jitsu instructors. They only hire us for women's only classes or to teach children because, I don't know, they think we're incapable of teaching men. But Drew is actually the first gym outside of my own that I was hired to teach a regular class, not a women's only or a children's class, a
Respect.
regular co-ed class. So huge shout out to Drew for doing that because schools don't do that.
Have you ever had anyone like that's learning that's in the class have a problem with you teaching? Have you ever had that?
Um, I had one guy when I had my gym. He walked in, like, let's just start from here. All my medals were on the wall. Okay, my
Mhm.
medals, my pictures of all my accomplishments and everything was hung up. This guy walks in, oh, and my like black belt certificates, from the federation, everything, everything pretty was sitting right in my office. And he walks in and he goes, "Who teaches here?" And I was like, "I do." And he goes, "You?" And like this face. And I was like, here we go. And that was actually the first time it ever happened after 13 years. But he was like, "You teach?" And he's like, I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, what accomplishments do you have?" And I like look over to my wall. I was like, "You see that wall you just went by with all of those? Are those good enough for you?" I was like, "And my black belt certificate right here that took me a very long time to get, is that okay for you too?" And then he never walked back again. He was probably embarrassed, but like
Yeah.
just the way that he talked to me, I was like, "Who are you? I'm sorry, who are you and what accomplishments do you have?" To be sitting in my office asking me those kinds of things. Like, you came to my school. So I was like, "You didn't even do your research?"
You
So
always get one asshole, right?
yeah, it was literally one asshole. And then there are some people that are hesitant at first until they either get to know me or they train with me. They actually get to roll with me and things like that. Some guys will see a short chick that's 5'1" and be like, "What is this shit gonna do for me?" You know what I mean? until they actually roll with me, and then they're like, "Oh," I get that a lot. Like, "Oh, you're a lot stronger than you look." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I've been doing it for 13 years. If I don't make this look easy, nobody else is gonna do it." Like this is like day 1 or 2, 3 that you're training, and like you want to beat me that's been doing this for 13 years. I'm like, just do the math. So, it's usually from people that are new.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other people that most of the time, though, because ever since I opened my own school, men are less intimidated when there's a female teaching on the mat.
Really?
Yes, because think about it, right? If you walk in and you see this dude and he has huge cauliflower ears and a black belt and he's like, and you walk on this mat, or you see this chick and she's nice and she smiles and she comes and she's like, "Hey, let me teach you, blah, blah, blah." Who's less intimidating?
Yeah, I guess you would expect.
We have the motherly
Yeah.
instinct, you know what I mean? Of like teaching and doing these things. So a lot of gym owners, guys, I'm telling you, like putting a female on your mats, it's the smart thing to do.
Definitely. Before we wrap it up, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know
Thank you.
you. Do you know when your next fight or when your first debut is, or?
No, I don't have anything yet. I had plans of possibly fighting June 17th, but I haven't heard any news yet. There hasn't been anybody to
So we got to call out the whole world. We got to call out everyone.
call everybody out, man.
All right.
Roll out the girls.
You have it. Anyone watching and you want to fight, hit up Juliana. Let's get a fight going.
Let's go.
Let's get her in the cage and fighting. I'm curious, what does your company name mean? Your
Kakahi. So it's actually a Hawaiian word. It means determination and mindset to achieve greatness. So it comes out of singleness of purpose, which is what that means. So
awesome. Very cool.
Which is what martial arts is. You have to have the determination, the mindset to achieve great things. So that's exactly where that came. When I saw that name, I was like, man, that's the one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was curious when I saw it online and all. I'm like, I wonder what this means.
Yeah. So my plan, once everything starts generating, is to actually generate income to be able to donate to charities. I don't want it to be just a brand that you wear and you have no idea what it means. I want it to be a brand people put it on and be like, hey, this brand is helping other people. So I found a foundation that actually helps kids out in Hawaii, and they provide jiu-jitsu lessons and CrossFit lessons and stand-up lessons and things like that. And that's what they use their money towards. So eventually once Kakahi starts making money, that is my goal with it. It's to help. It's not to make profit. Awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's my goal with it.
Let us know one more time how everyone find it and purchase it.
It's kaukahicollection.com. It's KAUKAHI collection.com. It's also on my Instagram, and I also have an Instagram page for it. But if you look at my bio, it's right there.
Awesome. Well, Juliana, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you get in the cage and go to work and put some people out.
Go. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm getting ready, and I'm excited. I can't wait to get in. It's going to be such a different challenge for me. I'm really excited for it, and there's a lot of great things to come.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sponsored by ProFit Gym in New York in Deer Park, 24/7. Definitely go check it out. Beautiful facility. They have every piece of equipment you could think of, as well as Blau Work pre-workout. Use code CCMMA, as you can see scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Get $5 off your Blau pre-workout. No sugar, no caffeine, no crash. So definitely check it out. As well as go to visit mymmanews.com. This video and interview will also be on there as well. So go check out that. It's top 10 website among MMA. So, ladies and gentlemen, hey, Juliana, it's been an absolute pleasure. Wish you
Thank
the best of
you.
luck and hope to hear about you fighting in the cage soon.
You guys will see me on TV soon.
Absolutely. This is Carol's Corner MMA podcast, and we're signing off.